The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus entered the temple, and as he was teaching, the chief priests and the Pharisees came to him, and Jesus said to them, "Listen to a parable. There was a landowner who planted a vineyard. He put a fence around it, dug a wine press in it, and built a watchtower. Then he leased it to tenants and went to another country. When the harvest time had come, he sent his slaves to the tenants to collect his produce. But the tenants seized his slaves, beat one, killed another, and stoned another. Again, he sent other slaves, more than the first, and they treated them in the same way. Finally, he sent his son to them, saying, 'They will respect my son.' But when they saw the son, they said to themselves, 'The heir. Come, let us kill him and get his inheritance.' So they seized the son, threw him out of the vineyard, and killed him. Now, when the owner of the vineyard comes, what will he do to those tenants?" The chief priest and the scribe said to him, "He will put those wretches to a miserable death and lease the vineyard to other tenants, who will give him the produce at the harvest time." Jesus said to them, "Have you never read in the scriptures that the stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone, and that this was the Lord's doing, and it is amazing in our eyes? Therefore, I tell you, the kingdom of God has been taken away from you and is given to a people that produces the fruits of the kingdom. The one who falls on this stone will be broken to pieces and will be crushed, and it will crush anyone on whom it falls." When the chief priests and the Pharisees heard his parables, they realized that he was speaking about them. They wanted to arrest him, but they feared the crowds because they regarded him as a prophet. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord. Since the beginning of Lent, we've been walking with our simple definition of Lent. And if you recall, we said that Lent is taking that journey with Jesus until he gets to Jerusalem. And when he gets to Jerusalem, Jerusalem is not just the capital city of Israel, but Jerusalem is the place where three things will happen. And those three things are what we call the mysteries, the Paschal mysteries. Those three things are what we celebrate at the end of Lent. Those 3 solemn days of Lent celebrate those 3 things that happened in Jerusalem. We celebrate the Holy Thursday, we celebrate the Good Friday, and we celebrate the Easter, the resurrection. So we're following Jesus to the place where those 3 things will happen. Now, in today's gospel reading from Matthew chapter 21, Jesus gives a brief summary of God's plan, why it was necessary for those three things to happen. So he tells it in a parabolic form. So in the parable of the wicked tenants, he tells the story from the beginning of creation to the time when Jesus was crucified on Good Friday. But it was a parable. He said there was a landowner who built a vineyard, planted it, put everything in it, and leased it to tenants. Now, Jesus is talking about the beginning of creation. God created the Garden of Eden. He put everything in the garden, and he put Adam and Eve in the garden. They didn't own the garden. God owned the garden. So in this parable, he calls him the landowner. He put a fence around it. He dug a wine press in it. And then he leased it to tenants. And then he says, ever since then, he kept sending servants to tenants. He said the first sets of tenants. We're talking about the patriarchs now. When we're talking about the first sets of the servants that he sent, he sent Noah. He sent Abraham. He sent Isaac, Jacob. Those were patriarchs. He sent Moses. He sent those people there. Noah warned the people about living in this garden, in this vineyard. And then the text says, they seized the tenants, beat them up, killed them, and stoned them. And then he sent another group of servants. Now we're talking about the prophets. After the time of Moses, after the time of Joshua, after the time of the judges, then he sent prophets. He sent Isaiah, Elijah, Jeremiah, Habakkuk, prophet Ezekiel, prophet Amos, prophet Hosea. All the prophets were all stoned, and all of them were killed. And then he says, finally, he sent his son. John chapter 3 says, God so loved the world that he sent his son into the world so that all who believe in him will be saved. So in today's text, it says, finally he sent his son, saying, at least they will respect my son. And what did the world do to that son? They seized him, they threw him out of the vineyard and killed him. Now that's a summary of what happened to Jesus. When Jesus gets to Jerusalem, they will seize him, they will take him out to Calvary, out of the city, to Mount Calvary, the place called Golgotha, and they will kill him. Lent is a journey to that place where Jesus will be killed. When we do the Stations of the Cross, that's what we do. We go from station to station, following him until that place where Jesus is crucified. So as we carry on this journey, two questions that all of us must answer. The first is, what kind of tenants are we? That is the question for Lent. We know that the world does not belong to us. We know that we are tenants. Now, what kind of tenants are we? Are we the tenants that will stone the Son of God? He says here, they seized him, they threw him out of the vineyard, and they killed him. Now, everybody participated in different ways in what they did to Jesus. There were those that nailed him to the cross. There were those that betrayed him. Judas betrayed him. The disciples ran away. We can see ourselves in these different groups of people. So the question for Lent is, which group do you belong? Which group do I belong? And then the second question of Lent is, are we going to be able to follow him to the end? Because that's what is called Christianity. Spirituality is staying with Jesus till the end. There are people that are falling away. There are people that have said, well, I don't want to have anything to do anymore with Jesus, and they have fallen away. So during this season of Lent, we meditate on those two questions, and the answer we provide to ourselves and to God will determine how faithful we become to the end.